All right, to make sure that we're good on time and we have enough, we'll start and I'll introduce all the wonderful presenters that we have today. So welcome everyone who's been joining us throughout our Humane conference. We're elated to have you all. Just to start and introduce the whole panel, we'll start the session with Ieva ZeBryte, academic at FCJE, UFRO at CL and ISMLT. She'll be presenting on values-based entrepreneuring, advancing resilience processes of MSMEs and communities in emerging economies. Then we have Dr. Indu Khurana, assistant professor of economics at Hampden-Sydney College. She'll be presenting on the influence of religion on the humane orientation of entrepreneurs. Then we have Dr. Joo-Hoon Soo, assistant professor at George Washington University School of Business. He'll be presenting on humane entrepreneurship in the travel industry. And hopefully Dr. Hartmut Meyer will join us, a professor at FOM, and we'll be presenting on responsible entrepreneurship characters of a new generation. So Ieva, I give the floor to you to start us off.
Great, thank you. So I'll share the screen as the dynamic goes here. Full screen mode, right? Is that okay?
I think, yes, you're good.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. Well, hi, my name is Ieva ZeBryte. I'm a PhD student at the ISM, University of Management and Economics in Lithuania. But I work and live, I'm a full-time academic at the Universidad de la Frontera in Chile. So I'm coming to you from freezing south of Chile, as you can see from my attire, and the temperatures have not risen that much above zero now, but which makes it a great occasion on a Sunday morning to sit inside and share time with you guys. I will be presenting on values-based entrepreneuring, advancing resilience processes of MSMEs and communities in emerging economies. Sorry for the last minute sort of flip of the title. Those of you who have been expecting for me to talk about technology mediated aspect of it, it will appear here at the end. I just meant to make the flow of the session a bit more flowy because in my research, values-based entrepreneuring is very close to humane entrepreneurship, the main topic, right, of today's conference. And among others, religious values are also influencing the way MSMEs on a local scale do entrepreneuring all over the world, I'm sure. And I will be sharing today examples from Chile and Latin America. And I'm also here, so to say, not alone, because a lot of the ideas have been inspired by my colleague who have been with whom we've been having these inspiring conversations about resilience and sustainability and values-based entrepreneuring here in the south of Chile. So today's presentation has a twofold purpose. First, it highlights the importance of inclusivity in entrepreneuring ecosystems and proposes to achieve inclusivity through relational thinking. And second, it showcases data collected for the resilience manual on for MSMEs in the COVID pandemic. And during that work, important revelations about values-based entrepreneuring and resilience nexus came up, and I'm sharing these with you today. So, for example, UNESCO, UNDP, Organization of American States are all calling for diversity and inclusion in all our efforts directed at achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals and fulfilling the 2030 agenda, right, on sustainable development. But the issue is that the colonial legacy in the business and entrepreneurship education, and hence the way we do entrepreneurship and the way MSMEs do their entrepreneuring is still being pieced together both by universities and the organizations that I have just mentioned. But in Latin America, we boast mixed populations, we boast diverse indigenous populations, and we definitely do not have neither research nor education nor the practice or practical approaches to entrepreneuring based on the needs of these populations. So specifically in Chile, in the context of social uprising in 2019 in October, the GDP growth decreased in 3.9%. And from 3.9% in 2018 to 1.1% in 2019. These are the World Bank figures. The unemployment rate in Chile was 7.1%, and even though it decreased in 2018, from 2018 to 2019, it has decreased. The COVID-19 pandemic definitely caused, havoc in the MSMEs community, and we have here the data from UFRO studies where MSMEs reported 84% of MSMEs reported fall in the number of clients, and 70% reported lack of liquidity. Hence, employment also obviously went down, right? The available positions went down. And in La Araucanía, specifically the southern Chilean region where I'm at, entrepreneurs lack capacity and skills to innovate. Hence, they're sort of unable to develop a full range of scenarios of the crisis situations. And here, this slide shows why they are unable to do that. Entrepreneurs don't see themselves as creators of social value. This weakens their connection with local communities and hinders resilience processes in the entrepreneurial efforts. And why resilience processes are relevant, and why am I speaking about them also in the context of sustainability? Why I'm mentioning sustainability? So the resilience processes on business scale, on local community scale, are tied together, and we can see from this World Economic Forum infographic that entrepreneuring ecosystems are of need of sort of help of understanding how these global processes that are shown in this infographic affect MSME resilience processes. So arguably, resilience processes are more relevant in vulnerable areas, but I would like to also call your attention to that even in developed countries. For example, there have been some studies in Sweden. We see that local communities and MSMEs have these, relationship, which is both good and bad in terms of resilient processes. So even in developed countries, we see that less resilient MSMEs are in less resilient or more vulnerable communities. So resilience processes on the ecosystem scale are part of sustainable development processes. Paraphrasing Spinner and colleagues, I'd say that resilience is necessary but insufficient condition for sustainable development of local communities. Local development is driven by MSMEs, and for whom the resilience capabilities of anticipating, absorbing, and adapting to disasters stem from experience and determination of MSME owner-managers, their values, and entrepreneuring practices that are based on those values. So to simplify, we assume that resilience processes have short to medium-term reach, while sustainability has medium to long-term impact on MSME strategy and operations. And these in turn affect resilience capabilities of anticipating, absorbing, and adapting to disasters on a community level as well. Because like any social activity, like any practice, everyday life is a flow of disturbances, and we can better observe them on the community level. We must look not only on organizational level, so MSME level, but also on the community level. Why? Because the values and beliefs and the main paradigms of thinking play out on the community level and up, right? They play out in the collective spaces. So here I will, due to my bad time management skills, I will just say that clearly what we should be moving towards in terms of solutions is from universal thinking towards the pluriverse, meaning that just as it echoes to, in my understanding, at least in the humane entrepreneurship, is that we need to be, centered in multiple actors, and that means in humans, right? Human beings that compose our organizations. So Dr. Kim Chen was explaining to us about the CEOs, how they are to be inspiring, how they should be empathic with every worker, with every human being that is in their organization, and also client-wise, right? So here we can see the numbers that we have to think about when we are thinking about these solutions. And my suggestion here is to replace the market-based solutions with value-based ones, which to me is the path towards this human-centered entrepreneurship that we are here today to talk about in this conference. So to wrap up, I would like to present to you this matrix, which we have developed by fusing the values that come out of the Western worldview and also the multiple, these universes, so the pluriverse that feeds the values of indigenous communities, of religious communities, of could be also LGBT plus communities and others. I am a white woman living my privilege here in the indigenous lands of Mapu, and I do recognize that this matrix has to be analyzed with a good degree of self-criticism. However, I propose to you that we should be working when teaching entrepreneurship, we should be working through this matrix where empathy is understood as the ability to put oneself in the place of the other person, that is to identify and to be sensitive to others that we recognize as different from us, that equity is important in the entrepreneuring processes, and equity is understood as a condition of inclusion that operates implicitly and explicitly in all collective and public action, right? So here recognizing that MSMEs have a role to play in the collective action as well, not only generating income, for example, providing a service, a product. Enablement is understood here as the act of making something possible by providing someone with the means of, or the opportunity to do something, right? Again, going back to Dr. Kim Chen's wonderful stories from Korea that he told. And finally, empowerment is understood as the act of making something possible by providing someone with the appropriate power and authority to do something. And here we're practically circling back to the previous session where Dr. Norris Kruger was presenting us about, how we should center entrepreneurship education on our students. And I think from this matrix, we can even use that to give more boost, to give a boost to his position. So finally, to finish up, this the matrix that previously I've shown you is the one that is aimed at feeding these steps, these four steps that I'm suggesting here. So this matrix is a foundation of the roadmap, which I suggest that us entrepreneuring educators should follow. So we first should push everyone to reevaluate, meaning that we should redefine what we value as humanity. For example, the basis of our beliefs and values should be that should be the unity of nature cultures. Please notice that I have placed cultures after nature, because we can have the first without the second, but we cannot have the second without the first. So nature is more important than culture. Second, we should reimagine, meaning that we should take time to work out the plurality of the futures that are ahead of us, right? With all the uncertainty, hence resilience and vulnerability concepts that I have shared with you before. So we should rethink of these different, of the plurality of futures that are lying ahead of us, and we don't know which one will manifest. And third, that we should join the movement which is pushing to reset, meaning an active effort to shrink the economy as we know it, as it is right now, what in the previous session Maria mentioned, right? Change the way we think completely, and join the movement which seeks to build a new system of value creation and exchange based on these completely new and different values. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I still got over 1 minute over time.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. A really great presentation. Like I said in the chat before, if you guys have any questions, make sure to enter them, and we'll circle back once everyone has presented. So next we have Dr. Khurana to present. So I'll give the floor to you.
Just do a little check. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So I'll start by thanking Dr. Dervishi for organizing this great session, great sessions from the morning, Dr. Chen and Norris Kruger. It was fantastic hearing to them. Now, this is a collaborative work with Dr. Amarpreet Singh Gura and Dr. Dev Datta. My name is Indu Khurana, and in this presentation, we actually evaluate the impact of religion on humane orientation of entrepreneurs. So that's our research agenda. I'll start by highlighting the importance of small and medium enterprises. We are celebrating this MSME Day today. So they contribute to the economy by adding to job growth, by adding to innovation, and to the society they add organization, management. And if we talk about individuals, it adds a sense of accomplishment. So when we study these factors cumulatively together, they bring an entrepreneur to the center stage, like bringing entrepreneur to the limelight. And then their decision-making process at the same time becomes very important. Like, how are they making these decisions within an SME? Now, there could be various factors that impact entrepreneurial decision-making process. It could be psychological factors, let's say the personality, my mindset, my level of cognition. Or on the other hand, there could be some non-psychological factors, let's say my affiliation to a group, my religious values, my cultural values, the friends and family that I hang out with. So they all have an important role in the entrepreneurial decision-making process. Now, what scholars have been arguing is that we need to adopt an inclusive view of entrepreneurship. How will that view look like? That rather than just focusing on the entrepreneurial behavior and performance, we need to also consider psychological as well as non-psychological factors that play a huge role in entrepreneurial decision-making. With that aim, humane entrepreneurship as an inclusive theory was conceived that acknowledges these synergies as well as adopts a holistic perspective, like a holistic approach. Now, our research question, the motivation of our research comes from the fact that the cultural values, the religious values, or my religious orientation plays a very important role in what I do as a human. And possibly it also impacts entrepreneurial behavior too. But we do not have enough information on how religious values, like cultural values, impact the humane orientation of entrepreneurs. So in our research, we asked this question: what is the impact of religion on humane orientation of entrepreneurs? And we found that there are deep connections between religion and humane entrepreneurship. So that was my brief overview, and I'll start by anchoring my presentation in what is this humane entrepreneurship. Now, humane entrepreneurship is an evolving theory. It's made up, just takes an all-inclusive view. It's a very societal outlook. And as Dr. Kim mentioned in the morning session, that it's a human-centric entrepreneurship approach. And it just doesn't mean that you're sacrificing growth and profitability. It just pays attention to the overall society. And this humane entrepreneurship puts entrepreneur at the center stage, that he is a change maker within that society. So if we talk about humane orientation, it has three sub-constructs: entrepreneurial orientation, humane resource orientation, and then sustainability orientation. Within EO, entrepreneurial orientation, the entrepreneur is concerned about the innovativeness, proactiveness, how I'm taking risk, how risk averse or risk pro am I. Within humane resource orientation, the entrepreneur is concerned about the employees, customers, empathy, equity, empowerment of women, minority employees, and even enabling them. When we talk about sustainability orientation, it takes a broader perspective. It talks about the environment. And as Eva mentioned, that you cannot talk about cultural values without talking about the nature. So it takes the overall perspective of innovation, empathy, and the overall society. Now, when we consider these all factors together cumulatively, it makes a multidimensional construct that's humane orientation. And humane entrepreneurship or humane orientation then creates a value distribution across these different constructs, like entrepreneurial venture, employees, customers, and even the overall society and environment. So we are not just talking about how much money am I making, but also about the quality of those returns. So it's not just quantity, but both quality as well as quantity of returns. So with that aim, we come to religion and entrepreneurship. Now, scholars have already studied a lot about the interaction of religion and entrepreneurship. It impacts entrepreneurial behavior, the way they make decisions, even occupational choice in some cases, my employment network, my credit supply network, and how we even deal with failure. We often remember God when we are not feeling well and the business is not doing well. So there's a lot of research that establishes that. But the linkage between those humane entrepreneurship construct, like humane orientation, there's not a lot of research. So with that aim, we studied this intricate relationship between religion and humane entrepreneurship in the context of India. Now, if you're wondering why India, first of all, I'm an Indian. And then India is a very multidimensional country, like very ethnic, very diverse, 121 scheduled languages, 270 mother tongues, and it is home to like multiple religions and some of the major religions across the world, and even small indigenous religions. So it was a perfect context to study this humane orientation and religion together in the context of India. So what we did was we adopted a qualitative approach and we interviewed 16 entrepreneurs from 4 of the major religions in India: Hinduism, Islam, Jainism, and Sikhism. And our questions were based on the scales that were already in the study that have been established based on EO, HRO, and SO, which I've just discussed. Now, our sample size was again a mix of manufacturing and service firms and family-owned and non-family-owned businesses. This is a little snapshot of how our data looked like. It was across the country. We had data from Maharashtra, Gujarat, and even Delhi. So we started our research with 2 different aims. The first aim we had was like, what is a manifestation of humane entrepreneurship across different religions? And then how the impact of religion, what is the impact of religion on humane entrepreneurship? So with that aim, for the first one, we calculated the coding density of the participants' spoken text across the 3 dimensions of EO, HRO, and sustainability orientation. And then we compared the rank ordering of the spoken text across 4 religions. So we took those semi-structured interview data set and we calculated the coding density. Our results show that there are no differences in the way humane entrepreneurship manifests across different religious groups. If you see, EO received the highest coding density, followed by sustainability orientation, and then humane resource orientation. So there was no significant difference. And this is our little table that shows that close to like 40% of the coding density was assigned to entrepreneurial orientation. For our second question, or second, measuring the impact of religion on humane entrepreneurship, we first asked all the participants to provide a rank ordering on a 7-point Likert scale, how religion impacts the dimensions of EO, SO, and HRO. So starting from 1, no impact, to a higher impact, giving a ranking of 7. And then we compared this rank ordering using a non-parametric equality of population rank test. And the results here showed the impact of religion on humane entrepreneurship. There was no significant difference when we asked the impact of religion on sustainability orientation. If you see, it's the highest. So there was no difference. And it's interesting because if we consider religion as an overarching theme for goodwill, that aligns with that humane orientation. And people said, you know what, it impacts our sustainability orientation the most. So there was no significant difference. But there were huge differences when we compared entrepreneurial orientation and humane resource orientation. And they were significant at 1% level. So there were huge differences across religious groups. So in order to conclude, we found pervasive influence of religion on the dimensions of humane orientation. And there are significant differences across the religious groups as far as the impact of religion on the core dimensions of humane orientation is concerned. Now, our contribution is mainly to the literature of humane entrepreneurship, which is like an evolving theory. And we urge scholars to even dig further and observe how the transition process of entrepreneurs work from moving from negative humane entrepreneurship to ideal human entrepreneurship. So Dr. Chen has given like a 4-quadrant how we can move from negative to an ideal human entrepreneurship. Then we contribute to the intersection of religion and entrepreneurship, and especially contributing to the literature on entrepreneurship in emerging economy like India, very diverse, very multi-ethnic. If you want to get more, if you want to read more about the paper, it was published in a special issue of JSBM, the influence of, with the same title, The Influence of Religion on Humane Orientation of Entrepreneurs. You can get a full copy up there at JSBM's website. And I'll close by saying that humane entrepreneurship is a promising field of research. I mean, we cannot have profits without measuring the quality of our profits. We cannot ignore the values, the impact on society, and even the environment. So it's a promising field of research. And even so, given the multi-dimensional world that we live in, it's more promising if we consider this research in emerging economies. So I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, we'll probably take it at the very end. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so now, again, please make sure that you guys write down your questions and we'll ask them at the end. But now I'll give the floor to Dr. Sa to give a presentation.
Thank you, Sky. Greetings from Washington, D.C. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Para Session 4 at the Humane Entrepreneurship in a Dynamic World Conference in conjunction with MSMEs Day. I'm honored to present at this prominent conference. My name is Dr. Jung-ho Sa, visiting assistant professor of management and tourism studies at the George Washington University. I teach various courses in tourism and hospitality management at the George Washington University. I also serve as project director at the Korean Management Institute at GWSB. Today, we will discuss humane entrepreneurship in the travel industry. We will talk about current issues, practical solutions, and takeaways on this topic for business leaders and MSMEs entrepreneurs who are running incredible companies in the travel industry. The topic for today's talk is based on the following concepts: the UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, humane entrepreneurship, MSMEs management, and travel marketing and management. Let's take a look at an overview of the travel industry first. According to UNWTO, travel and tourism is one of the world's fastest growing industries and an important sector of foreign exchange and employment, while being closely linked to the social, economic, and environmental well-being of many countries in the world, especially developing countries. Let's try to understand the scope of the travel industry. As you can see in this model, in this figure, there are 5 subsectors: travel, lodging, meeting and events, restaurants, and recreation. Under the umbrella of travel and tourism, various sectors, as you can see in the model, are crucial to meet the needs and wants of people away from home, who are the travelers, right? All these scopes, subsectors, have an effect on each other. Boston Consulting Group consultants recently published a report regarding the MSMEs, micro, small, medium, and medium-sized enterprises in the travel industry. The authors of this report describe the travel industry very thoroughly. And based on that report, let's check the overview of MSMEs in the travel industry. The travel industry, critical to the global economy, generating approximately 10% of global employment and contributing 8.9 trillion US dollars to global GDP. And MSMEs in the travel industry generate as much as 70% of the travel industry's revenues globally. So what does UN Sustainable Development Goals mean for the travel industry? Did you know that there is an UN specialized agency in the tourism industry? UNWTO, as I mentioned briefly earlier, United Nations World Tourism Organization, is the one focuses on responsible, sustainable, and universally accessible tourism under the UN system. So let's take a look at the interconnectedness between these two areas. The tourism and travel industry is expected to have the potential to contribute to 17 goals of the UN SDGs. And you can see all the 70 goals in this slide. As one of the fastest growing economic industries in the world, the travel sector has a significant impact on inclusive, sustainable growth through sustainable tourism initiatives. In the official UN documents on SDGs, under the name of sustainable tourism, UNWTO has firmly positioned the travel sector as an economic driver to achieve such goals. More specifically, tourism and travel have focused on goals number 8, 12, and 14 regarding inclusive and sustainable economic growth, sustainable consumption and production, and the sustainable use of oceans and marine resources, respectively. So how can we apply humane entrepreneurship framework to the travel industry? As Dr. Ki-Chun Kim and many other colleagues discussed and defined, human entrepreneurship can be defined as virtuous and sustainable integration of entrepreneurship, leadership, and human resource management, in which successful implementation leads to a beneficial increase in wealth and quality job creation, perpetuated in a continuous cycle. So how can we apply this? Take a look at this model or matrix here. Humane entrepreneurship curves out for the next technology as we are living in the age of Industry 4.0. In other words, the fourth industrial revolution, where machines work, do all the groundworks, and the human workers think and create and design the workforce system. As Dr. Ki-Chun Kim suggested in his research, high-tech companies, which is heavily relying on the next technology described in the y-axis over here, from AI to AI to IoT and blockchain. Those companies, high-tech companies, should aim to become a high-touch company, as in people will be in the center of their business operation, and technologies will be the supporter and facilitator to encourage human-centered organization culture for the company's day-to-day operation. And this model is originally developed by Professor Philip Kotler, and the figure is called the next tech across the new customer experience. In the x-axis, you can see 5 A's: aware, appeal, ask, act, and advocate. That's in the journey of customer journey. That's in the process of customer journey, and it describes the new customer experience. And I believe this model can be a guideline for MSMEs, entrepreneurs, and business leaders to get insights about human entrepreneurship as they are observing a swift transformation of business environment because of all the next technologies, also due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the application of human mimicking technologies, the next tech in the y-axis, is imperative to create, communicate, deliver, and enhance value across the customer experience. And as highlighted here, I'd like to give an emphasis on human mimicking techs, which lead us to reach the intersection of human entrepreneurship and MSMEs in the travel industry. As an example, let's taking a real world cases in the travel industry. Let's talk about AI technology. Let's assume that you are a marketer at an online travel agency, OTA. Using big data analytics, you can analyze online reviews posted by users on your platform. Let's say you are the marketer at a TripAdvisor, one of the largest OTAs in the world. Okay, based on the result on the big data analytics, you can, as a marketer, redesign the UI, user interface of your website, mobile app, and improve service quality. This model, how humans add value to tech-driven marketing. We've just discussed AI technology's breakthrough moment, and at the same time, there's the other side of the coin. For example, AI powered by big data is not a panacea for all the problems. You know, you can see what machines can read is the tip of an iceberg. They can read patterns of actions of the human beings, but the deep down in our mind, attitudes and values, that's the underlying motives of for actions. That's the gap where human entrepreneurship frameworks can play a role, and we can practice our business operations based on the understandings of the deeper in your customer's mind, based on the attitudes and values of one person's. So that's the intersection that we can see the interconnectedness between the human entrepreneurship frameworks and the travel industry and the UN SDGs all together. And here's the model to wrap up the session. According to UNWTO, innovation in tourism is collaborated action between governments, academia, corporations, MSMEs, and startups, investors, supporting business partners such as accelerator incubators and other stakeholders, fostering a successful tourism innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem requires connecting all the partakers to collaboration opportunities and prioritizing capacity building in tourism and technology. And this model gives us a guideline to implement such initiatives into our day-to-day operations And you can see the relations between the UN SDGs and the model suggested by UN World Tourism Organization, and each element can be creating some synergy between SDG initiatives and their role in this model of innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in the travel industry, once again suggested by UNWTO. Okay, thank you very much. That's all for today. We can keep talking about it. We can address some of the issues more in detail in the Q&A session. And if you're interested in, tourism program at the George Washington University, here's my contact. Feel free to contact me. Also, if you're willing to collaborate with the Korea Management Institute at the George Washington University, never hesitate to reach out to me. You have all the contacts here, and right, and visit our website too. Okay, happy MSMEs Day to all. Thank you very much. I will talk more about it in the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Seo, for this really great presentation. And so now, like you said, we will be opening up for Q&A. And so I did see some questions come in about prior sessions. So tribal women. So Dr. Singh asked, tribal women, SC and /ST caste system in India, which plays an important role. Discrimination in India highlights the gross distortion of humane entrepreneurship in women in India. So I guess they're asking toward Dr. Khurana about kind of, I guess, touching on that and how that affects, humane entrepreneurship in women in India.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Dr. Singh. First of all, in my presentation, I did highlight that there could be various non-psychological factors. Maybe it could be an affiliation to a group, maybe caste system or religion, and my friends and family members. So yes, that could be an interesting question, and we encourage scholars to look that in much deeper detail. Like if we do the same exact study with tribal women, different caste, if we see some divergence, then it actually brings up some of the important factors that we have been ignoring, and that will bring that to attention for policymakers. So we should definitely, we would encourage scholars to examine that and see if there is a divergence amongst caste system or like tribal women or women in general. So that'll be we can make some policy impact there. So yeah, there could be a divergence.
Thank you. And then Sue Kamala asked, in what ways religious beliefs can be seen as positive foundation to entrepreneurship to make the world a better place? Because they say that in present time, religion has been viewed in a critical and sensitive perspective.
Thank you, Kamal. And again, I think we did highlight that positive foundation to entrepreneurship, religion having that positive foundation for entrepreneurship through our study. And the main takeaway from our presentation would be that when we looked at the variation across humane orientation constructs, sustainability orientation emerged at the top, no significant differences. And that's what religion teaches us. Right? Despite the differences, one major message that every religion gives is like, don't do harm. Think about the society, think about the people. And that's what emerged from our study. So yeah, definitely religious beliefs, cultural values can be seen as a positive foundation, especially in entrepreneurship. And a recent research has started emerging in that area, and we would again encourage people to unravel those in specific contexts like India, caste, or tribal women, indigenous religions, and possibly there's a lot more to do. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And then for Dr. So there was a question about the travel industry and how it's been impacted by COVID, and how does humane entrepreneurship play into bouncing back into this new normal?
That's a great question, and many experts, especially the opinions, experts' opinions collected by UNWTO recently predicted that the recovery will start from the third quarter of 2021, but because of all the variants and slow vaccination rate, I'm not sure the Q3 will be the a realistic target for the travel recovery, starting point of travel recovery. But so that's the consensus from the experts, and that's the collected view on the recovery plan for the travel industry and human entrepreneurship. As Dr. Ki-Chan Kim and many other colleagues in this session and the previous session mentioned, it has many strong case studies from Kakao, like the DoorDash, Korean version of DoorDash, and all their charity foundation initiatives. All those new type of transformative leadership can be one practice, one takeaway that we can implement in the travel industry as well. So I'm not just focusing on the top-down management, but the transformation at the top level as a leader, CEOs or the founders of those companies can resonate quite meaningfully to all the organization, and that will give a significant impact on the transformation of organization culture as we are getting into the post-COVID-19 era.
Thank you. And Ieva, do you have a comment?
Yes, I have a comment. Thank you. Since I've published on resilience in tourism sector, and so presentation of Dr. Su was very close to heart. And I wanted to react a bit to the question in the way that it has been asked. So first of all, what I really hope is that we are not here in a situation of bouncing back. We definitely need to bounce forward, right? And I found that in the answer, the key word was transformation. So even before COVID-19, what I found here in the south of Chile, in these different tourist destinations that I invite you to visit once COVID is over, right? Transforming. Resilience basically means adapting to change, but also driving change. And values-based change was sort of my key message today, and that's why I'm very grateful for this research in India, even though I do not look specifically at religious values, but our research definitely, sort of feed into each other. In the future, in the post-COVID situation, I'm really hoping that we're not bouncing back, that we're bouncing forward, and even redefining resilience in the context of UN SDGs, where I as I was citing some of people who have been researching tourist destinations as well, they said resilience is insufficient but necessary condition for sustainability and sustainable development to go forward. And we clearly know that, right, from today's conference as well, that MSMEs are a big part of it, right? When we also heard about how much they contribute to pollution and how that has to change as well. So these are all things that are, right, connected. So I hope you agree with me on that.
Thank you for your comment. And I would like to echo Ieva's comment. We should collaborate on this topic in the future studies, right? Right. And back to you, Sky.
Sure. And then
questions?
Yeah, Dr. Singh kind of talking about tourism and looking at rural tourism and responsible tourism. They're interested in how to implement that sustainability in ecotourism in India, and looking for inputs from universities and collaborating with that concept.
Sounds great. Dr. Singh, I'll share my contacts in the chat or in the Q&A window. We can talk more about it after this meeting. That would be a great opportunity for me and for both of us. Thank you.
Great. And Ieva, talking about bouncing forward instead of bouncing back, what would you recommend, other professors in your field to, tell their students to, think of that mindset and how they can, students can really help in this process of bouncing forward?
Thank you for the great question, Sky. It's basically going back to my slide on from universal thinking to pluribus, right? On recognizing how the diversity that was shown off in Indu's presentation, right? Just India alone, and you look how many mother tongues, how many languages, but what are we doing with that? And that clearly shows these are the numbers that we put on something that is intangible, on how many worldviews there are. We live not in one world. We do not live in a world where one worldview is relevant or important. And these worldviews are sustained, just what Dr. Sug was mentioning. I'm sorry about that pronunciation of your last name and first name.
That's
perfect. Right, so we have the belief system, we have the value system, and for the professors, for educators in entrepreneurship area, I encourage them to go back to values and to recognize the plurality of worldviews these values and beliefs sustain, and teach entrepreneuring from that point of view, and that definitely will help us bounce forward and transform the world, as we understand it through the lens of entrepreneuring, through MSME activity, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, we have 2 more minutes left in this session, and then we'll be all coming back together for the closing session. Is there any last minute questions from the audience or even comments from the panel? I think you guys are just you're so great at presenting that everyone's answers have been, everyone's questions have been answered. So that's amazing. Again, we'll be sharing these recordings of these sessions with everyone who has registered. So you can definitely watch these again, and we'll be sharing, everyone's contact information from their slides and oh yes, and so just reach out if you have any other questions after this presentation. But I'll let you guys go for 1 minute early. Thank you again to all the presenters for these amazing presentations, and really being the thought leaders on these topics. So thank you again, and I hope to see you all in the closing session.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Have a great one.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, thanks, Sky. Great job. Thank you.